Henry Nixon will introduce our speaker.
Good afternoon. As I think all of you know, that Kevin Schreiber is our guest this afternoon, and he needs no introduction, so I won't. Actually, what really happened was I emailed Kevin a few days ago, and I said, send me a short bio, and so I can construct a brief introduction. Well, he wrote his own introduction. Send it to me, and I'll read it. Fasten your seatbelts, because you all know that he's not known for brevity. In addition to being a snappy dresser, a trait which he clearly learned from me. Now, I didn't write this. Kevin is our state representative, representing the 95th District, to include our City of York, Spring Garden, West York, and a portion of West Manchester. He came to York to attend York College, having grown up in Chester County in a town called Phoenixville. Phoenixville happens to be the same hometown as fellow Rotarian Sean Kenny. It would be easy to assess that there is something strange in the waters of Chester County. Sean, I did not write that. Kevin holds a bachelor's degree from York College and a master's degree from Penn State. He served the City of York for nearly 8 years, the majority of which as the Economic and Community Development Director under both Mayor Brenner and Mayor Bracey. Many of you are familiar with some of the great work Kevin did while with the City of York. There's no end to this, Mayor. I had the pleasure of working alongside of him. Well, that may be questionable, but I did work alongside him for many of those years as he assisted over $150 million in development in our city. Projects large and small, such as the Northwest Triangle, the Market District revitalization, light remediation, Salem Square, and Royal Square. Kevin worked with investors, business leaders, startups, residents, and neighbors to improve the overall quality of life and place of our community. He clearly left an indelible mark in the city, as it seems it's nearly impossible to replace him. I didn't write this. In 2013, Kevin successfully won the seat of state representative. Now in his second term, has it been that long? Kevin serves on the Appropriations, Education, Environmental Resources, and Energy, Tourism, Policy, and Urban Affairs Committees. Urban Affairs Committees. Well, you haven't done us a lot of good yet. In addition to his committee work, Kevin serves on a variety of caucuses, such as manufacturing, arts and culture, LGBT, women's health, and government reform. Isn't that a laugh? More importantly, Kevin is married to Jen, also a York College graduate. Jen is the owner of the Green Bean Roasting Company. He, Jen, and their dog Lucy live here in the city of York. But most importantly, now that I didn't write this, Kevin is a friend of mine, which has really led to trouble on more than one occasion. Furthermore, he's a friend to Rotary. Please join me in welcoming, as I call him, Surfer Boy.
Boy, oh boy, what a very fine introduction, Mr. Nixon. Thankfully, George Trout led me to believe that today's a roast. So, Henry, we're going to have some fun. But thank you all very much. Thanks for the invitation to come back and speak with Rotary. It is always a pleasure to come and if so far in the program, if it's any indication, this is going to be a raucous time. So, We're going to have some fun. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what's going on at the state level, some of the things here locally that we've been working on, and forgive me because I have given a PowerPoint, so you on this side of the room, you can squint, but I'll run through this very quickly and I'll talk about a lot of the details that are on the slide, depending on one, of course. You can scoot to the back. Henry had mentioned that I had some new committee assignments. I am very proud of the committees that I've been appointed to. Appropriations, obviously, for a $30 billion budget in the state. It's a good committee to be on. I serve as the chairman of a subcommittee on economic impact and infrastructure. So very happy about that. Education, obviously, with everything going on throughout our Commonwealth, this being a very premier issue in the recent gubernatorial election, and certainly everything going on here at home in New York City School District. I did lobby very hard to get on the education committee as we continue moving forward in Pennsylvania and really try to talk about educational reform. Environmental resources and energy. This is obviously a very, this will have a lot to do in the coming months with the Marcellus Shale. Not only the oversight of this pretty incredible industry in Pennsylvania, but then obviously even with Governor Wolf's recent announcement that he is proposing to implement a severance tax on the Marcellus Shale. So that committee will obviously have a lot of work in the near future. Tourism, Ann Druck is here from our Convention and Visitors Bureau, and obviously Ann has been doing an incredible job as the board and all of our tourism stakeholders here in New York County. And hopefully, God willing, we'll be able to bring home a hotel tax in the near future. And yes, it's honest to God, it's the most popular tax since the history of Pennsylvania. So I think we can get this one done. And urban affairs, as Henry mentioned. Incidentally, don't believe anything that Henry Nixon says. That's just a good rule of thumb. The caucus is, that's just where we get a lot of other work done. And in addition to those that Henry mentioned, I'm just recently now the co-chairman of the Craft Beer Caucus. So really getting down to the nitty-gritty work that the state has before. There are indeed some perks every now and then in this job. But I wanted to highlight a couple of that, but I also wanted to talk about, really, we're back in session now. Obviously, we're in a new term. People have been sworn in. We have some new members from York County. We have 2 females from York County, which is excellent. We need more females in general up in the House of Representatives and in the Senate. But it's great to have some new colleagues here in York County. I am the only Democrat that is elected statewide from York County, similar to Patty Kim up in Harrisburg or Mike Sterling in Lancaster. So we formed our own Blue Dot Caucus. We're in a blue dot and a red C. So nevertheless, we have a lot going on. But it's been an incredible transition now, obviously, with Governor Wolf being sworn in. And wherever you fell in terms of the November 4th election, certainly for York County, it is a huge benefit to not only have our Auditor General being a position held by Eugene Pasquale, and now Governor Tom Wolf. So it's been great to have him up there. Honest to God, you see him literally walking through the halls of the Capitol, which is somewhat of a novelty. I've been told that not many governors have frequented the halls of the Capitol as much as Tom Wolf has. A staff member that has an office nearby to mine had said that they were in line at the cafeteria waiting to check out, and they looked behind and Governor Wolf standing there with a tray. She was like, Governor, you can go ahead. He said, no. She said, what are you doing here? He said, it's a cafeteria. Where else do you eat? So, it's been great. He's also been popping in on some representatives and senators, just knocking on the door, stopping in, introducing himself. I was told that he caught one of the representatives maybe taking a nap on his sofa. Sure that was very awkward. I won't tell you if it was a Republican or Democrat. Clearly a very interesting member. But yeah, he's been walking around, knocking on the doors, introducing himself. And that is novel. And again, I'm pretty new at this, but I've been told that didn't happen. Whether it was Corbett or Rendell or Ridge, that's something that hasn't really been done. And I think that's leaving a mark. It's at least making a good first impression. I have a good friend of mine, a Republican, not from York County, but he's about my age, and he's the chair of our manufacturing caucus, Eli Bankovich. And he mentioned to me the other day, Governor Wolf stopped by his office. They chatted for 20 minutes. He invited the manufacturing caucus down to look at the Wolf facility. Eli laughed and said, how can we say no to that? And I said that seems to be pretty a good impression, Eli. He said, I'll be honest with you, and this is just Eli's opinion, but he said, I'll be honest with you, that's one more meeting than I had with Governor Corbett. So whether or not that's true for across the board, I don't think so, but I think it's at least setting a good tone. And certainly, he's starting to deliver on some of the promises that he's talked about in the campaign. And there's going to be issues going forward that we're going to debate, and there's going to be a time and place for that. But thus far, 4 weeks in, I think he's off to a good start, and he's at least setting a good benchmark. And look, he's from York County, so for God's sakes, it's been 6 decades since we've had a governor up there. We have a tremendous opportunity for York County. We've got 3 years and 11 months, and maybe an additional 4 after that, to really try to make a positive impact in York County. Now, he obviously has a Republican-held General Assembly, the Senate and House, and it's even a little bit more conservative than it may have been a couple months ago, so that's going to be a challenge. But if anyone is really up for that task, I think many would agree that Governor Wolf is going to enjoy that. He's going to enjoy the philosophical debate, and I think he's going to have some fun. And March 3rd is the budget presentation. It's when the governor presents to the joint session of the House and the Senate. So that's really when the fun's going to begin. It also coincides with sort of that 100 days, so that has to be, that's probably appropriate. So, but in any event, it's very enjoyable to have him up there. I think we're going to get a lot of things accomplished. I think it's going to be good stuff for York County for sure, and we need to take full advantage of it as York County, that we have a governor there. And it's certainly one that understands a lot of the challenges that I'm going to touch on a little bit here, particularly pertaining to our urban areas and our third-class cities. So, really quick, a couple very quick updates. I'm going to, you guys know I've had too much coffee. I'm married to a barista. So I'm going to run through a whole lot of slides here and cram a lot of information into a little bit. We have copies if you want them. I'll stick around and chat with you further if you have ideas or you want to offer some feedback. A couple things just from the district perspective. One of the first things that I launched when I took office was the Collegiate Advisory Council. At any given point in time in York County, we have about 10,000 college students or post-secondary students. That's a lot of intellectual capital. And we wanted to try to harness that. So this was in 2013, we launched this. We accepted applications from college students to serve a 9-month term with myself and my staff. We meet monthly and we talk about issues that are relevant to college students that are generally state or local issues. An incredible group of students. We had 13 to start. They came up with a report at the end that had policy recommendations that we can now work to implement. We're now on our second appointment of a collegiate advisory council. Some of the original members wanted to stick around to help implement, and we've already had a couple meetings. I have to say, it's incredible to work with these students and to see them apply the resources and get a grasp of how they can have an impact on policy that directly impacts them. One of the things that they came up with in that report, which I think this CAC council is going to make a presentation on to our colleges in the area, was to create a 4-credit mandatory course for freshmen, incoming freshmen, into any of our schools. And it's essentially like an orientation to York County, kind of like a Leadership York Light for college students. I like to call it sort of an indoctrination or brainwashing course that we can get them used to York County, but that obviously has an impact throughout their tenure here, but hopefully we can keep them, we can get them interested in some of our internship opportunities in all the organizations, and hopefully they stick around after they graduate. So that's a great program, and hopefully something good will come of that. Also, another thing that we did this past year, we had 2 very successful job fairs. Thank you to the employers in the room that did participate. If you didn't, and you want to, please let me know. We're going to have another one this fall. In May of last year, St. John's over on King Street, they hosted it. We had about 40-ish employers there. We had over 700 people show up. We learned a lot of lessons, like we needed more space. So we moved it in May to Santander Stadium. We had over 65 employees there at that point, and over 1,000 people showed up. We partnered with Bell Socialization, Career Link, Probation and Parole, HACK. We offered prep courses for anyone that wanted to attend, resume building, dress for success. If you attended that prep course, you got a first VIP hour for free with the employer, so you could go out and show up and interact with them. We heard from employers that they said, absolutely, those individuals, they came prepared, they were employable. And the 2 things that we really asked employers were, one was, only come if you have jobs available. This is not a marketing gimmick. We want to employ people. And 2, let us know if they are willing to screen individuals that may have had a prior conviction in the past, whether misdemeanor or felony. We know that that's a barrier to employment. We know that that increases recidivism rates. So we had a program, and there were asterisks, and if there was an employer with an asterisk, we knew that they would be willing to screen if they had positions available. I think that was tremendously beneficial, and we now know that the individuals that went to those prep courses were very successful applicants. So we need to increase the attendance at those prep courses, and that's what we're really working on for this next one in the fall. Some legislative highlights. Now, I just put this up there. You can read about it. I'm going to kind of skip the formalities and the routine of the stuff you normally hear. You know how the bill becomes a law, because I know you go home and watch Schoolhouse Rock. But it's incredibly frustrating, and ping-pong back and forth, and it takes a really long time. But there are macro issues and really micro issues. And Governor Wolf and the legislature, we're going to talk about those macro issues, whether it's a severance tax on Marcellus Shale, the minimum wage, or pension reform. There are very big things that we as a state and our Pennsylvania Congress is really going to work on, and it's going to, there's going to be a time and a place for debate. And then there's micro issues. There's ones that are really affecting us here at home in York or in our small communities across Pennsylvania. These are just a sampling of some of the ones that I'm personally working on. A lot of them have to do with economic development. A lot of them will have to do, hopefully, with helping to reform our municipalities, fighting blight, code enforcement. Could I have a show of hands real quick? How many in the room generally go through the newspaper to find when a public meeting is coming up? City council, zoning. All right, so we have, all right, you guys just proved you are a great focus group. So you just proved that we may not need to continue doing it. Now, we have a former editor here. I don't want to, there is a bill that we're working on that will allow municipalities, county governments, and school districts to advertise their public meetings online. We spent $26 million in this state advertising public meetings. I know when I was with the city and the Economic Development Department alone, we spent about $60 grand a year. That's planning commission, zoning, redevelopment authority. That's a lot of money. And that's just local governments. So I think we can modernize that at this point. There was only a couple hands that went up that still actively use that. So that's one of the things that we're working on. And actually, that I'm working together with Senator Wagner on, which everyone may, probably not find shocking at all. But Senator Wagner and I both agree on this, and it's something that we're going to try to work on. There's some other ones. Obviously, the York County hotel tax, as I said, one of the most popular taxes in the history of Pennsylvania. Hopefully, we can get it done this year. And of course, the York City School District. And Dave Meckley is here, and I think Dave will attest. The governor has exhausted a lot of resources and time on this issue in the first 4 weeks. I know that there's some more information coming forward in the very near future, trying to build upon the foundation that Dave has built with a lot of the data he's collected and the work that he's done. We know we need to do something with our school district, but we also know that it has to be successful. It has to be successful for York County, but it has to be successful because it has to be replicated, because we have the same challenges that are going on in other school districts throughout the Commonwealth, be it Harrisburg, Chester, Reading, Philadelphia. So that, more to come in the very near future. But I wanted to talk a little bit today about something that is obviously very near and dear to you as Rotarians, myself, and the city, not because I'm a resident of the city or my wife has a business, or because I used to work for the city, but because it's important for us as a state. Right now we do have a national trend that young people, the next generation coming out of college, they want to live in an environment that we have. They want an urban environment, they want walkable. They will move, the millennial generation will move to a place that they want to live in before they find a job. So we have a tremendous opportunity right now in New York and in our cities across Pennsylvania. We have over 50 cities in PA, including Philly and Pittsburgh. So we have this tremendous opportunity and this ability to harness that capital, but we're missing the boat, so to speak, because the policies that we have in place are very archaic and antiquated in Pennsylvania, and we're hamstringing our cities and our municipalities. So, in addition to the recent solutions, and the state is great about doing small, modest improvements, but we worked on Act 47 for 2 years. Act 47 is the law that governs if a municipality goes into financial distress status. Well, we worked on what that law does, but we're not addressing the problem as to why the municipalities are going into financial distress status. And I'll be the first Democrat to come here and say we need collective bargaining reform, we need pension reform, we need new revenue options, but we also need property tax reform. And along those lines, that was something that I wanted to really discuss today with you. Up until a couple of weeks ago, I called this the measles map. Probably not appropriate now. But in any event, what you're looking at is municipalities in Pennsylvania that are in financial distress. So it's not just York, it's not just Philadelphia, it's not just cities either. There are a lot of older communities, boroughs, even townships, that are in some stage of financial distress. So we as Pennsylvanians have to do something to improve this. And this isn't just coming from me, this isn't just coming from other individuals. Most recently, our York County Community Foundation did an assessment, Lauren Crow, I know, was part of that, did an assessment on the city's financial health, and also a path forward, how do we get to a stable financial city. And so they even said that this has a ripple effect, not just on the city, but it's good for York County. It's good for Charlie Snyder. It helps Charlie Snyder if York City is in a, nothing helps Charlie Snyder, but it's good for other people other than Charlie Snyder. But it's good for us in York County if we have a healthy city, and that holds true across Pennsylvania. It's healthy for Pennsylvanians if our cities are doing well. And the foundation even went on to paraphrase that there are other older communities in Pennsylvania or in York County that are feeling the same type of strife. So, and it's not just the city, Westbrook, Hanover, Manchester. So, again, you've seen this type of information before. You guys have heard this before. The mayor, I know, just gave a presentation not too long ago. Incidentally, the mayor just had to deal with a very difficult, challenging budget. She had to make a presentation about potentially cutting 40 police officers. No city should have to face that reality, and it's really incumbent on the state to try to remedy that. I would ask, since we have our controller, Robert Lambert, we have our mayor, this applause is not for Henry Nixon, but I'll ask that you give a round of applause to those individuals that did remedy that. Henry, that's specifically not for you. Now that I've pandered to every politician, it's like going to a rock concert and saying, yeah, York. So I've pandered to the politicians in the room. But in any event, you've seen this before. 1.6 billion is our tax base in the city. 1 billion is taxable. 37% is not. If that 37% paid taxes, that would equate to about $12 million. $12 million would pay for 120 police officers. That's more than our current force complement is. So we have this challenge, and that's not to suggest that our tax-exempt organizations are to be vilified. In fact, quite the opposite. We like them. I mean, generally speaking, these are charitable organizations. They're healthcare, they're religious, they're education, they're government. We as York Countyans benefit by having a strong system of our nonprofits. Bob Woods is here. The United Way, all of those member organizations. We do better in York County by having organizations that serve our population. The problem becomes when you localize those organizations in a locality, that tends to be a burden for that municipality to provide services. But generally speaking, our exempts are good, we like them, and it's healthy for York County to have a menu of those organizations. The challenge becomes is how do you pay for services if it becomes a burden to that municipality? And it's not just the city. I showed this slide just to give you some indication. We have about 44,000 people that live in the city of York. We have about 40,000 commuters that come down every day to transact business. The city residents took home an earned income of about $344 million last year, while the commuters took home about $825 million. It costs the city of York about $750,000 per week to provide services. That's streets, that's cops, firefighters, all of that stuff that we rely on, and we just know that is there, but we often take for granted. The commuter contribution to that cost is about $72,000 a week. The resident contribution makes up the lion's share, about $678,000. I don't dispute that residents should pay more of that burden, but what I would argue is that it's disproportionately shared right now. And further, that we happen to also put that on the backs of some of the poorest residents in York County, concentrated here in the city. So when we do economic development, and we like it, and Darrell likes it, we like to build buildings, we like to populate those with employees. Jobs are good, but for the city of York in particular, when we have economic development incentives, when we give away tax dollars or things of that nature, we inhabit the buildings with employees that don't necessarily live in the city. It's not an overwhelming benefit to the city. Now there's indirect benefit, and we like it, and it's redevelopment, and it fosters more amenities on top of itself. But as a whole, that is a financial challenge to the city. So economic development, while it's great and it's needed and we like it, it is not the solution to this problem. The state has done an incredible job of offering programs like KOZ or the CRIZ program that we'd like to get in York. But as a whole, this is not the solution. And ultimately, for the city of York to just keep pace with the cost increases every year, we would have to develop $75 million of new development every year that's taxable. I will be the first former economic development director to say the greatest economic development strategy that the city of York could have is to cut taxes in half and let the market dictate what happens. Unfortunately, what we've been doing in the city for these past decades is trying to balance the disequilibrium that occurs, and that's done through financial incentives. And unfortunately, those financial incentives aren't triggering the necessary revenue to the municipal government to pay for services. So despite all of the best efforts, $75 million a year, we've never hit that. In my last year as director, we did $70 million, but not all of that was taxable. To give you a better understanding, to do $75 million in new taxable real estate every year, you would need 6 Santander stadiums that were taxable. You would need 4 judicial centers that were taxable. You'd need 3 Susquehanna Commerce Centers. You need 75 White Rose Bar and Grills. You need 35 Yorktown hotels every year. So it's not to suggest that it can't be done, but it's going to be very, very difficult. So we can't simply economic develop our way out of this. So what I wanted to posit to you today is an idea that is certainly not new. This was first pitched back in 1996. How many were Rotarians in 96? Henry, I said 1896. 1996, I just got my driver's license. We had the Rust Report. David Rust came to town. He did a report on York County and the future sustainability of York County. And it obviously focused in on the city of York. A then CEO of the Wolf Organization and aspiring beard model, Tom Wolf, chaired the Better York Committee, and he brought David Ruskin. Even at that point in time, then Tom Wolf, now our governor, who still has a great looking beard, was focused in on that the county has to do more regionalizing, but also has to take a stronger lead. Page 19 of the Rust report said that the county government should increase, this was a proposal, the county government should increase its tax rate by 1 mil and distribute that revenue to municipalities that have higher, disproportionately higher tax-exempt concentrations. So that would be a benefit to York City, but it would also be a benefit to a whole host of other municipalities. To give you an example, in '96, one county mill generated $10 million. In '96, one city mill generated $600,000. Today, 2015, one county mill, $25 million. One city mill, $900,000. So you can see the city's tax base has not grown. The only reason it went from 6 to 9 is we had 2 countywide reassessments. The county's tax base has nearly tripled. So the city's tax exempt rate, as you've all heard, is 37%. The whole county, the whole York County tax exempt rate is 9%. So countywide we're at 9%. So York County tax base is $30 billion. Nearly $3 billion is tax exempt. York County's total is 9%. We have 72 municipalities in York County, 19 of which have a higher than 9% average. So it's not just York City. This is a challenge that is being faced by a host of our municipalities. There's a list of them there. Not just York City. It's Fairview Township, Penn, Spring Garden, Dover, Fawn Grove, Manchester, Mount Wolf, North York, Wrightsville, West York, and a few others. So this is a problem that we're seeing across York County, localized in our older, typically older communities. There's the common thread with those. So, in an oversimplified example, if the county government were to increase the tax millage by 1 mil, generate $25 million, and proportionately distribute that revenue to municipalities, in York City, our tax-exempt value is $583 million. $583 million is not taxable. That's 37% of our municipality. Of the county's $2.7 billion, we make up 22%. So you follow that? We're 22% of the county's 9%. If you were to apply that in an oversimplified example to the 1 mil, the city of York would stand to benefit by $5.5 million. And so would a host of other municipalities as well. Now, I bet you would ask, well, hey, Kevin, that's an interesting idea, but what would $5.5 million mean to the city? Well, $5.5 million to the city, I'm glad you asked. In our first year, we could lower our taxes by 1/3. In 2 years, we could pay off the city's accumulated deficit and get us back to a starting point. In 5 years, our credit rating will be back to an A rating. Right now, we're a step above junk bond, unfortunately. Just a step. It's a big step, but it's a step. But what's also important, too, is the revenue would continue to grow as the tax base grows. If this is a percent of a mill, as the tax base grows in York County, which it intends to do, the revenue will grow. And if it's a sustainable system of revenue that is predictable, and we had it ad infinitum, the municipalities can continue to lower taxes over time. So all we're doing at its core, this proposal, is broadening the tax base and actually ushering in countywide property tax reform. So this is countywide property tax reform. You could tweak this formula in any direction you'd like, but it benefits 19 municipalities right off the bat because they're above the 9%. And this formula could be tweaked that all 25 million could go out, or it could go proportionately to some that have higher concentrations. The countywide impact to the average York County is $100 for your 100,000 assessed value. So your property is assessed at 100,000, that would be a $100 impact. So even in the worst case scenario, that you would have to pay more, you'd be paying $100 per 100,000 assessed value. But the benefit overall, and look, we've talked about property tax reform in this state for 30 years. And unfortunately, I'm the legislator from Harrisburg saying we can't wait for Harrisburg. It will be great if Governor Wolf has some good proposals, and there are some presented out there, and there's some floating out there now. This idea is just an idea, it's that, but this would not preclude the state from doing reform. In fact, further, that would complement our efforts. The unmeasurable impact of this, however, is if you reduce the taxes in the city of York and other municipalities, but if you cut taxes by a third, invariably the property values will go up. And you will have generated wealth in a highly impoverished area. You will have created wealth overnight. That obviously has an economic impact on the county, has an economic impact by adding more spending money. So there are benefits that we can't measure, I can't quantify that, but we know that it would very likely happen. And again, this is not just in the city of York, but there's other municipalities, the 18 other municipalities, but it could also benefit the entire county as a whole. It broadens the tax base. To raise a mill in the city of York, that generates 900 grand. To raise a mill in the county, it's 25 million. And the exemption this would fall on top of the homestead exemption, which if you're a city resident, you get about $550 in rebate. It would fall on top of the property tax rebate, which you have to be over 65 to receive, but that's another $650. So that we're talking about, upwards of $2,000 now. That's a pretty significant amount of money that is saved. So the disclaimer that I've sort of mentioned throughout is this is a very oversimplified example. This is just an example, but it's a concept. And it's a concept that was good in 1996, and I would posit it'd be good today. And as I said, I've done a couple different versions of the spreadsheet where all 25 million goes just to the 19 municipalities. I've done a version where it goes to all 72. You could really tweak it any which way you want from there. But you could have it as a benefit to all municipalities first and foremost, and then those with higher than the county average of 9% get a proportional amount more. And you're driving down the local tax dollars, which obviously has a benefit across the board. It brings some level of parity between municipalities. We fight amongst our municipalities. Darrell can tell you, we just had the 250 distribution jobs in West Manchester Township. We still had to incentivize that. We're fighting between West Manchester Township and Spring-Ferry Township, whereas we should be talking more as a region, as of York County, what's good for York County. And we also know that fragmentation of government is incredibly difficult in Pennsylvania. So, all that said, the best part of this, you've heard it. The best part is certainly that you've heard it. The second best part is it takes 2 votes to do this. 2 votes by 2 county commissioners. Now, certainly it would be nice to get it unanimous, all 3, but it takes 2 votes. You don't need 102 in the House. You don't need 26 in the Senate. You don't need to send it to committee. It doesn't have to get a governor's signature. We could do this today, or probably after the county commissioner election cycle, and actually usher in countywide property tax reform, which is something that we've been talking about in the state for years. So in any event, I know that's a lot and a little bit of time, but I hope that it resonated, and I have some information if anyone wants to take with. I'm happy to take questions, but we're probably running short on time. And I really want to thank